Good morning, and thank you for keeping it Citizen Television. Like always, we appreciate your time and company. Of course, it is Tuesday, and Social Hour begins right now, coming at a time when there's a lot happening in our country. And of course, just to be sensitive to this season that we are in as a country, we are dedicating this program just discussing how then do we navigate. I know that in one way or the other, there could be somebody who's feeling a deep sense of loss and grief, considering what just happened. And first of all, before we even delve deeper into what you're going to be discussing, allow me and my panelists to just take 1 minute of reflection just in honor of the fallen former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and then we can kickstart what we had planned to discuss this morning. All right, and yes, it is indeed a heavy season for the country, specifically for the family, and of course for all those people who supported his cause in his entire life as the icon that he has been celebrated to be in terms of politics, in terms of reforms, in terms of matters constitutionalism, and everything that has been said about this great gentleman who now has left us. But then again, this morning we have observed what has been happening since this news was broken and the country received it, and many people were in a space of not really knowing how to deal or how to navigate with, what had just happened to us. And it just also reminded, each and every person who could be dealing with any form of loss. You could be out there, you have lost your loved one, you have lost somebody who's very close to you, and you found yourself at one moment where you did not know how to navigate. And of course, those who have not been in that space, this is actually a wonderful opportunity for you to get into that world and to get to listen to how you can be able to really walk through that journey of losing a loved one. And allow me now to bring in on board my panel for this discussion this particular morning. Roberta Bobby, naona ulipata memo, karibu sana.
I had to.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, good morning.
Today's a very, last Tuesday things were different, and then this Tuesday it's a whole different thing we're talking about. But ningependa tu kutuma rambi zangu kwa the whole country, everyone who's in mourning right now. Poleni sana, and we just stick together and stand together as we go through this phase, especially as a country together.
Cutie?
Well, it's a heavy issue, and I was telling Bobby before we even came in, I told her, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold myself together, but I hope I'll be able to hold myself together. But condolences, especially to the whole family of Raila. And of course, as a country, we are mourning. It has really affected everyone because he was a he was a man of the people, and he was the people's president. So we continue to mourn him, and may he rest in peace.
Yeah, and may the family just find solace. CJ, like we were talking earlier and we were saying, things happen so fast. And the days have moved. It's sort of like it's been a whole year, if you ask me, since we were here last Tuesday and today. A lot has happened within the few days we've been apart. But just give you a chance to give us your opening remarks and how probably you received, this news.
Well, that was really heavy.
Yeah.
It was difficult to put the former Prime Minister and death in the same sentence. He was so full of life, so there are people you nearly feel are immortal in a sense because of their energy, how they carry themselves around. But you see that even with the will, he still put the country first. Just thinking about if the body was to stay here longer, the country wouldn't move. So he decides he's going to do this in 72 hours. As was his custom, he would challenge norms and customs. Of course, I think he also was trying to speak to the people from the western part of this country about the long, elongated and expensive burials. If you look at his speeches, they were not just political and constitutional, they were also very cultural. He would keep on referring to cultural things. So even in death, he was still, trailing the blaze. But to everybody out there, people were so deeply affected. I had a 50-minute call with a 27-year-old Kenyan lady who lives in Australia called me the other day at about 6 a.m. and she was so broken, you know. She's been out of the country like for 3 years. You wouldn't imagine that somebody would have an impact like that. And she doesn't even come from the Luo community. And to everybody out there who is grieving, everybody who has the sense of loss, and for everybody who this particular loss woke up their various griefs that they have had as well, just praying peace and comfort to you, and especially to the family, to Mama Ida, you know, to Rosemary, Raila Jr., Winnie, and to the grandchildren, then to everybody who was really close and around Raila. Condolences to you.
Yeah, you can imagine, you know, how do you process loss of somebody? The magnitude of the loss was so huge, even for the nation. You can imagine how the family is receiving that kind of a loss and how they are processing it right now. Right. And even what you said was important. You know, such kind of an occurrence would stir, you know, a loss that somebody probably had gone through before that happened. And that is why we are dedicating this program just to discuss how to navigate these very difficult times and tips on how you can be able to move on as an individual, whether you're mourning, you know, this specific loss that we are currently in as a country, or it could be so personal that there is somebody close to you that you have ever lost, because grief is actually a journey. You may have lost this person years ago, but you're still dealing with it, or it's something very fresh. And as we talk about this, by the way, there are families that lost their loved ones at the stampede in Kasarani during the viewing of the body of the former Prime Minister. So they are also dealing with, you know, sort of like a double tragedy for these families. Right. These people went to in support of an icon they celebrated, and they never came home alive. So also our condolences and our special, sorry to those families that are mourning at this particular time. But then again, before we delve into the specific topic, maybe just a moment to just give our reflection about the lessons we draw from the former Prime Minister, and even how this whole burial process has been conducted. There were so many things, starting from the spark that he sort of like brought. People from even other countries would actually speak about him with so much passion and talk about how he influenced their spaces in one way or the other. But for you, Roberta, also to give you just a moment, you may or may not have interacted with him personally, but going by the wave we've seen and the magnitude of the sea of humanity that we saw, you know, just coming out to send off the late former Prime Minister, what is it about him that as he goes, you will remain with this, and this is what will inform, maybe as a lesson, as something that you remain with as an individual?
You know, I come from the Luo family, so you can imagine kwetu watu wako depressed sana hata kwa nyumba. And although I've never met him, there's a time, I think last year, 2022, when he was passing by in Kibera and I was in the area. And I didn't even see him. I just had his voice. Tulikuwa mbali kidogo, but there's an energy, there's a presence. There's, you know, when someone walks into a room and all of you turn because you know that person has walked into a room, there's an energy that he had with him. And I think that's why even the people who don't know him and the people who've never met him are feeling very, very bereaved and very, very saddened. But a lesson I pick from all this is authenticity. To be yourself as authentically as you possibly can, because that is what is magnetic. That is the energy that will push people to trust you, to believe you, to love you, to want to be around you, to even go to the points that they're calling you the people's president. This is who he was. It's not something you can take from someone. It's not something that CG you get from her. It's just through you being yourself so authentically that it shines. And it even becomes bigger than yourself. It even surpasses who you are as an individual. As people were giving their, speaking throughout the eulogies and stuff, you could hear people talking about the things he's done for them, the things he said to them, the people he helped. These are things that were not really always coming out when he was alive, because these were things he was not doing for show. He was just completely being himself. I'm realizing talking about him, or even just talking, it's actually really hard. I didn't know.
It's a very difficult show.
I didn't think it was going to be this difficult. Now that I'm in this position, I feel like I'm even struggling to speak. But what I'd say in conclusion to the lessons I'm learning is just show up as yourself. Your tribe will find you. Your people will always find you. And you will always shine more than you ever imagined. That's what when I think about Raila, that's what I see. I see someone who shined even beyond who he was as an individual. You had people talk about him in the capacity of a politician, of a colleague, of a friend, grandfather, father. I don't know if I've heard in real time someone be praised like that, despite, and this is crazy because even the people who felt so betrayed, the people who felt like they were at loggerheads with him, it's everyone coming in consensus to say this person was a good person. So it matters how you show up and how you are as yourself. It makes a very big difference.
Yeah. QT maybe also just to hear. You know, that's the thing, because his death is actually not, it is a death that comes with a lot of weight, but he has left so much positivity that has been shared and outpoured out there that people are just talking about the little facets of his life that really influenced not just them, but the entire country and the entire continent and even the entire globe. And maybe just also to hear from you how you remember him and how you celebrate him and what maybe surprised you about the man that he was. Or
you know, this man has actually cut through all generations. You know, every generation relates to him. You know, there are those people that you'll find a certain generation is not talking about him or they're not relating to him, but basically everyone is talking about him. Even kids are actually talking about him. And one thing I really loved about Raila Amolo Odinga is that he was very constant and very consistent, actually. Consistent. You know, consistency is key in this life. Like in each and everything that he did, he always showed up. He was always there. And as CJ said, he put the country first. That's something that I think most people did not realize until his passing. He always put the country first. In every decision he made, you know, we would think that we know him, but when something happens and he made a decision, you actually come to say, actually, he did that for our country. From the word go, from government to government, each government, the decisions that he made, he actually made a decision for all of us to actually have peace, if you think about it. And when I was seeing Winnie talk about his dad, something that stood out is that when she said about the 72 hours, you know, that's something very key and very important, because he knew we would, honestly, as a country, we would have dragged this thing over and over.
And he knew the community.
He knew the community.
He knew how things are.
Yes, so he said, guys, you know what? It has to be 72 hours. I know you guys love me. I know what you're going to do, but it has to be 72 hours. Do what you have to do in those 72 hours. So that is also something that, even in his death, he knew what was going to happen. And he said, you know what? You guys need to move on as a country, putting the country first. You see, he was selfless. That is someone that is selfless. He did everything for peace. And as we know, the other politicians, it's never about the country. It's always about themselves. And I could see everyone across was just talking good things about him, whether they were in the same chamber or not. Everyone was talking positive things about him. There's nothing negative that has come out of his death. So I really like about that. And of course, the reggae part of it, you know, I related to him because I remember in 2019, when we were just starting out our show on Radio Wax Tiki Taka, we actually called him to wish him a happy birthday. And I didn't think, he was so humble. You know, it's not every day you call a politician on air and they actually pick your call. So we called him through the Radio Citizen number and he actually picked and he sang that reggae song of Jamaican Farewell. And I was like, who is this guy? You know, we were just, you know, that thing of let's just try to call him and wish him. Right now, you cannot get a hold of a politician, let even alone sing for him. You're just daring. So tukasema, wacha tujaribu tupigie baba. And he gave us that moment, and that is something that I can never forget. I never met him personally, but that moment right there really humbled me, and I was like, this guy really loves reggae, you know. For him, I also related to him through reggae and consistency. That is something that I think we should actually do in life, like just put people in front, like usijali whatever happened to him, you know. He never judged anyone. Whatever happened to him, he said, you know what, for my country, I'm really going to do this. So this is a very heavy show for us today, and I am glad to be able to even get that opportunity to actually talk about it.
But it's part of what we were discussing, you know, dealing with grief and loss. You really have to come to that space where you can talk about that person and not break down. And it's part of healing. It's part of the processing of what has just happened. And what you've said reminded me of what one of the things that I've had, we've watched a lot of TV in this 5 days, 4 days, and we've been also part of the process of producing, just carrying this whole journey ahead. And somebody said something that really stood out for me, that Raila had fire on one hand and water in another hand, that he knew when he was so powerful that, the impact that fire has, that he knew he had that power. But then again, he held water in his hand, and he knew when the time was right for him to pour that water on that fire. When the country was almost burning, and it is not just once, we've been in moments as a country when things were almost falling apart. And this gentleman knew exactly when it was time to cool things down, to forget about his selfish maybe ambitions, and put that aside and to put the country first. And that is just how powerful Raila was. But then again, CJ, your own reflection of this tower in politics, and even yesterday you had the family speak so passionately about him, and it gave us a glimpse of the other side of Raila, the family person, the patriarch of the family that maybe none of us were exposed to. But then as CJ, what are your reflections about the former premier?
Yeah, Safin, the other side of me is a politician. I could go into long history.
Yeah.
But I think one of my most memorable moments was when I had the opportunity to pray for him at his 77th birthday at Bomas of Kenya in 2022, in the heat and the height of the politics and the significance of his birthday, which was 77. And then there was the talk about, 7 is his number. It was the 7th of January then. And the side I was coming from, a lot of people within church were totally against him. So you could feel the tension was very palpable. And he asked for a different kind of people, and then I was approached to do that. I thought to myself, should I not? And I'm glad I did that. And then the second was when they asked me to do something similar at the ODM and Jubilee National Delegates Congress. They joined one at Kasarani. Again, gave a speech and a prayer. Then I know a lot of people will talk about, Baba called me, Baba did this. But I think after I did that, then I left because I didn't want to be in the political space. And then he sent the person that had brought me into this fray and say, please call me that gentleman, because he wanted to do an introduction to Uhuru then. But I was trying to really avoid getting so caught up in the politics. But that shows you, the heart that the gentleman had. I don't think I was what you'd call the big shots that would come in, but always the opportunities that he would always offer to different people and respect what different people are doing. But again, I've followed the gentleman for so many years, just reading and thinking and talking politics. I grew up in a town where we would wake up in the morning and feed on politics. You go and start reading newspapers and debate it right from the 80s. So I could say a lot. I saw when the father's body was brought to Kisumu in 94. And you look at this gentleman now and you're like, I never thought anybody would hit the heights of his father. When Jaramogi died in 94, you're looking at it right now and you're asking yourself, what is that? For him to have hit the heights that he has right now. I think also now it just tells me you don't need a position to be effective. Without the presidency, without the arms of government, without the instruments of power, he transcended that and became something bigger than what the presidency would ever give him. Absolutely. You rarely get two presidents, a sitting president and a former president, coming in and outdoing themselves in praising somebody who never even sat on a seat and who was their competitor. It's not like this was somebody who was with them in the same party. This was somebody they competed with. And the hallmark is yesterday, the former president staying on with the family.
Just to be there the next day.
This should tell you a lot about the man. When you leave the politics alone, this should tell you about the man. These people competed so fiercely. And what is this emptiness that he feels about this man? because they may not even have agreed about the arrangement of the prime minister and the current president, but it never shook their friendship. And this should tell you something about a person, that anybody would see and see the genuity of the person. What Kitty has talked about, a consistency of vision and goals. And Bobby talked about, just be your authentic self.
Yeah.
If you do what you are supposed to do, and what you're doing is based on your convictions, it doesn't matter who agrees with it now. I think we generally appreciate people in retrospect. And great leaders were not great leaders in their time. Mm-hmm. It is when they had gone that people would look back and say, but surely that was a great person we had. Because in the heat of the moment, there are a lot of competing interests. There are things other people do not see. And so if you live for people and you live for the immediate praise, you may never accomplish much in life. But when you are very focused on what you want to do, and you know where you want to go, and you believe that is right, you do it. Take the initial hatred for it, or the misunderstanding, the name calling. It is said he's the only person who never sued any media station, the only person who never blocked, who never blocked anybody on X.
But he was Baba, so
yeah. When you have convictions about what you're doing, you don't do it for the accolades. Yeah. And I think that's for me the biggest lesson is how you can be very impactful and effective without necessarily having the platforms that people run towards. Find a cause, stay on that cause, have convictions around that cause. At the end of it, after time will tell. Don't sell your convictions for the immediate applause or accolades. If you believe in something and you know that is right, go ahead and do it, even if nobody claps for you. You don't get any likes, you don't get any retweets, you don't get anything. Just do it. Yeah. Time will tell. So I think that's very key for us in a day when we will sacrifice convictions at the altar of convenience and, popularity. Yeah.
It's true. He was loved and hated in equal measure, but I think in death, it was so clear which emotion was stronger than the other, during his lifetime. My biggest, I have a lot of things that I've learned about him, and even just during this funeral process, what really stood out for me, but the most significant for me was how he managed to be a transgenerational leader, how he morphed and stayed relevant. Right. If you look at the crop of leadership we have today, you wouldn't find a leader who is the age of Raila who was as powerful as he was in this time. And his style of politics, I think, is something that is going to take centuries for even political pundits to really understand, because it worked in every generation. It worked regardless of which government was in power. It worked in every season. And I think that really took some deep thought, and it was intentional that he did that, because I don't think there's a leader who can really manage to remain relevant for the seasons that Raila remained relevant. Till his last day on earth, people were never really expecting that this day was going to come. Right. So it means that the world was still ready for more until he just surprised everyone and he was no more. And I think it challenges us about how we should live our lives. Right. I mean, is your graph like this, or it's like this, or it's, just think about how you're living your life and how you're influencing people. Your last day on earth, how is it going to be like? Are you still going to be somebody who is relevant and needed and important, or are you going to be written off such that people are just waiting for your day to Roberta, it sounds funny, but it really gives you that deep sense of, how am I living my life? The day I live, will I live at my peak, or will I live at my lowest? So it's a challenge for me that somebody of that age has left for me as an individual to think about I'm doing my things. But then again, I know we can talk about Raila the whole day, but the essence really was about using this opportunity to give people insights about how to deal and navigate with difficult seasons such as this. And let's begin with the realities that death brings. Let's start there as we navigate into the stages of dealing with it. Roberta, maybe just to also hear your thoughts on, you can borrowing from the example of what happened last Wednesday, the realities of death. As soon as that news is broken, you know, how is the state of people, the state of mind, how is it received, what gap is left, you know, just for people who've never been in that space, and fortunate for you to relate with the kind of pain and the magnitude of what death does to people who are mourning.
Nasikia joto kwa chest.
This is difficult. and the disclaimer, we don't have all the answers, but together we are going to navigate and help each other to, you know.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I think it's really important even just to have the platform to be able to have these conversations, because there's discussions in the society that are not had. And even with, you know, this happening, saizi hata tunaona X kuna wars about culture shock. You know, people are so shocked. You guys do that happens, that. And then we're talking more and we're learning from each other's cultures, and now we're able to be more understanding and accepting. So I think it's a good thing. Even if it's difficult, I think it's a good thing to speak about it. I have a friend, before I answer your question, I have a friend who one day asked me, you know, Bobby, she's an orphan. She asked me, Bobby, why don't you ever ask me about my mom? And it hit me, oh my goodness. My friend told me that nobody ever asks her about her mother. Ever since her mother died, she's never had the space to be able to talk about her mom. And that's because we don't know how to navigate grief. You don't even know if that person wants to talk about it. You don't know if it'll bring back horrible memories or it'll trigger their anxiety and their depression. So it's a very delicate discussion to be having. So what the body and the brain and the mind and the heart does once you receive the news of death, first of all, it's always very shocking. And kuna stages of grief. We're usually talking about it, but let me just go through it now. Haraka. So the first stage is denial, where when you first hear the news, you're shocked. Sengine hata tunatumiana messages WhatsApp. Is this true? Did this happen? Because it's
not true.
Yeah, because what happened? Because it's not always, your brain doesn't register that this is even a possibility that can occur. Especially shocking deaths. Like you said, we were still expecting more. I don't think we were expecting for this to happen, especially in 2025. A lot of us were still waiting to vote for him again when he comes on. So it's a huge hit. So you go through the denial stage where it's very difficult to be accepting of the news that you just received, and then you go into anger. So now this is where you're thinking about what I should have done, what I should have done better. Should I have called them? Should I have spoken to them? Should I have shown up more? Should. And it gets very triggering and angering because una realize after mtu amekufa, you'll never be the same person you were again before that. Now this is a whole different you who has to deal with living in a world where this person does not exist anymore. It's very angering, especially if it's someone who's close to you who has passed on. And then you go into the bargaining. So now you're ama ni ukweli, ama si ukweli, ama nikubali, ama, you know, you're thinking about all these things, again, possibilities that could have occurred. You're bargaining with yourself. You're bargaining with the people around you. You know, what could have been done better in this situation? And then we go into now the depression. So the depression is kind of the onset of acceptance because now it's hitting you enyewe, kitu ni ukweli.
Yeah.
And I think this hit for me yesterday when I saw when they covered the grave and then they cement it, and then I saw Uhuru was there, and then now it hits you, oh my goodness, like this is real now. This is when the celebrations are still happening, especially in the Luo community, you know, we celebrate life. You're not thinking, yeah, in the back, subconsciously, you know, this person is dead, but it's still lively and loud and dancing.
Yeah.
And then everyone leaves the bomber, and now you're left to sit with yourself. It's very depressive. There's a silence that is very... If you've buried a loved one, you know what I mean. Mukishazika alafu watu waende na imeisha. That's when it sets in that this has actually happened, and it's very, very depressive and scary. And then now we move into the acceptance, where now you're able to accept that this has actually happened. And it's not like these stages are linear, ati ndatoka hapa niende hapa ni kama stages za matatu. It's very sporadic. You could be accepting today and tomorrow you're back angry, and then you get depressed after 5 years. So I'd like to just say that as we're going through these griefs together as a country, as a family, It's important that we're very cognizant that grief is real. I always say, ukivunjika mguu, you don't harakisha your leg. Pona, 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 pona. You're patient with yourself. You give yourself grace and kindness. So even through now, whether you liked him or not, whether you're going through your own kind of grief in your own way, be very patient with yourself and be very graceful with yourself. Be kind. Understand that it is painful, it is hard, it is difficult. It might not all come into realization right now, but your body knows how to acclimatize and how to take you through different phases of life. So just be kind to yourself and let's be kind to each other.
That's really enlightening, just taking us through those stages and to realize that each and every person could be at a different stage at this particular moment. For any loss, it could be personal loss. So you could be in the denial, in the anger stage, in the bargaining, in the depression, or in the acceptance stage. Each and every person is dealing with it differently. And just to add on the anger, you've talked about the internal one where you're asking yourself, maybe I could have called, maybe I could have been there more, maybe this could not have happened. But there's also that external where you're angry at, first of all, this person who has died.
Oh, yeah. Because how can you just die?
How can you just die on me now? You know? And then there's that anger of maybe the close, the people in your social circle, family. Maybe you feel they let him down or they let her down.
The blaming. Sometimes people blame each other.
Or, that kind of anger. You feel angry because you feel like these people didn't take care of this person. Wangemchunga, maybe wangempeleka hospitali, maybe wangekuja on time, maybe they could have done this and that. This person would still be alive today. So you could be caught up in that space for a very long time, and it denies you the opportunity to move to the next stage of maybe dealing with that particular grief. That's also a reality that people need to check. But also, Kitty, we were talking earlier and we were saying people mourn differently. It's different for everyone, and you could be shocked at how people are dealing. Like even in this loss, we could see other people are strong, others are breaking down, and it exposes you to that reality that people actually mourn and deal with this differently.
Grief is different, and I came to understand that even the people that are around you, something that Bobby has said, because I've actually gone through that, you see in my circle of friends, you see those friends that you call your circle, like your support system. Let me say this, like they've all lost a parent. Well, I was their friend. So it was really hard. What Bobby has said, like, I am not able to talk about it, like ask them, are you okay? How are you feeling? It's so hard to ask someone, but what I've learned with grief comes in stages, and grief is like a cloud, There are those days where the sun will shine so bright, and then there are those days where the thunderstorm is going to beat, you understand? So there are those days that you'll see this person, they're okay. Even when I lost my best friend last year, there are those days that the grief comes, I just cry out, like I just sit and I cry. It's not a good day. But there are those days that I choose, and I just choose to just remember them. I remember the good days, those days that we used to laugh with them. You cannot control how you feel. And I think we like to put grief under the rug, not talk about it, not cry about it. And there's one phrase that I think people should just stop saying, it's going to be okay, don't worry about it. No. I think we should stop saying that to people. I think what we should just do is just be there for them. Like, let them know I'm here for you. If you need anything, I am here for you. If you want to talk, if you want to cry, and I think we should discuss about it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to let out. I keep saying, if you need to go and scream it out. If you need to cry, if you need to eat, there are people who stress eat. There are actually people who eat when they're stressed out, There are people who laugh when they're stressed out. Unapata tu mtoto ameanza tu kucheka. Na si ati venye ako happy or anything. That's their way of releasing. So people have different ways, and I think grief comes in stages. So you can never say you're going to be okay. It can never be the same again, Safin, at the end of the day, because this person was so close to you. This person was maybe your best friend, was your dad, was your mom, your sister, your sibling, your daughter, your son, so it can never be the same again. So this is what I'd say about grief. Just let yourself be. Let the cloud be there. When the sun is shining, let the sun shine. When the thunderstorms are beating so hard, let yourself be. Allow yourself to cry. Allow yourself to go through grief, because as I said, leo unaamka uko sawa, kesho unaamka uko chini, unaget. So you think that with years it's gonna be better, but I'm telling you, sometimes even after like 5 years, you still find yourself crying so hard and crying so much about
it. Like it's so fresh.
It's so fresh, you understand? So let yourself go through all the stages of grief. Usikazie. And people saying, oh, you need to man up. Why are you telling someone to man up?
You should move on.
Yeah, you should move on, Bana. It's been years. What are you talking about? It can never be the same for anyone. So let people go through their grief the way they're supposed to, or the way they want to. There's no right or wrong way of going through grief. Yeah. Just let someone be, and the best that you can do, and what I've learned with myself is that the best I can do for my friends is just be like, are you okay? Do you need anything? I'm here if you need anything. And then when the anniversary comes is when they start saying, you know, I need to go here. You actually take them, be there for them. That's the best that we can do. But I think telling someone, you know, there's no right way to actually deal with, even for your friends. I feel like I can never be there enough for them, you know, like for them to overcome that grief. So what I just do, I just let them be. If they want to cry, I just tell them, let's cry together, you know. If they want to laugh about it, if they want to do whatever they need to do, I just be there for them. But it's never easy. Grief is never easy.
And the power of silence also. If you don't know what to say, I mean, just show up. Just show up and be there. I mean, the power of silence, people underestimate that. Show up and apple. You just never know. Your presence may mean so much. You don't have to feel obligated to say something. You may say the wrong thing in the wrong context. Nyamaza tu. Kuja tu jifunze kunyamaza. Be there for that person. And also, it's okay not to cry. You know, we judge people when they don't cry. In our African culture, tunasema, mbona halina babake amekufa. Kwani asikii uchungu. It is okay not to cry. There are people who don't deal with loss by crying. They have their own way of doing it. So if you see somebody who's not crying, it's not strange. That's their own way. Let them be. CJ, I mean, what would you share with us in terms of what people need to know about grief and loss?
Very difficult, whichever direction, whichever way it is. Every form of loss is painful. And grief nearly is the same. A heartbreak and the loss of a loved one will nearly accord you the same level of grief and pain. Sometimes the heartbreak is worse because the thing that has broken your heart is alive. You know, you see that, so closure becomes a bit more difficult. But as you know, Bobby was talking about it, this thing is not very linear. You can actually begin by thinking you have accepted it because you probably thought you saw it coming, especially people who are bearing parents whom they think are aged and were unwell, and they begin to think that they were preparing themselves for the loss. So they feel that when the loss happens, they will accept it. And on the day that they are told that the parent passed on, they will say, well, they've lived their lives. And then they begin to go backwards. After a while, they find themselves in the place of denial. I remember calling my mom's phone, not realizing I had it. One day, I was coming from, because we had these patterns. Whenever I would be traveling, I'll call her from the airport, or if I'm going to see her, I'll call her at every stage, every town that I'm going into, and call her, say, I've gotten to Nakuru, I've gotten to Kericho, you know. And so one of these days, I've come from this meeting, I am high energy, so I'm feeling like, let me catch up with my mom. And I call, and I realize I have her phone. You know, because even your system takes time to adjust to those things. And the things that you have done together keep on reminding you of the emptiness and the loss of this person. But we had treated her for a while for cancer, and every morning, you know, you wake up and you're scared of looking at the phone because you do not know what news you will get. So sometimes this thing begins even before the passing on of the person.
So you start grieving before.
You start before because of the fear, especially for those who have people who are unwell. There are those cases where somebody has been involved in an accident and it's very sudden. That has a very different shock. But even those who normally think that they were ready, because either the person was old or was sick or something, you'll realize that what you had been doing over time was numbing your feelings and your emotions. So you were trying to tell yourself that you are ready, but nothing really prepares you for those kind of things. And sometimes it takes a while. I know a lady who told me she had to confront her grieving self after 5 years, like you were saying. She traveled to Cape Town, and for the first time alone in a hotel, gone there for a certain conference, and then grieves her mother, broke down completely. So it's important to find your way of grieving. It's important to find that, and whatever way you need to do that. I think one of the things that we struggle with is that whenever people have come to the burial, then they tell you at least you are finished with it. Just because the body has gone into the ground does not mean that that season is done.
That chapter is closed.
And that's why many people will move away and never think about a family anymore, because they feel that they've done the bigger part. There's a very worrying trend right now, which is all people do is to send contributions. And they never think that you need their presence.
Yeah.
So guys will just be like, okay, set up a WhatsApp, let us know what the budget is, put up an M-Pesa number, and you know the money will pay the bills, but it will never fill the void.
Yeah.
And the money is important. There's a reason why in the African culture people would come and be around each other. That was a support system as well, and talk about the different things about the bereaved. That was also part of, you know, getting healed out of it. When you hear different stories, the connection, you relate, you're able to talk about it. There's a reason people would stay longer after the burial. We've really changed on that. So we have a lot of people who are dealing with grief that is unresolved, unhealed grief, because at the point that the body has gone into the ground, everybody thinks they're okay. And then they now feel they don't have permission to talk about it because everybody feels it's done.
Time to move on.
Yeah, everybody moved on. Allow me to talk about a few insensitivities that I see around grieving people. You've gone to grieve with a family. You've come in as friends and groups around it. You spend your whole time on selfies. There's a grieving person over there. For you, it's a road trip. So even sometimes people who say they showed up, didn't show up. It was a road trip for them. And in a moment, you're up over there with your happy photos, not realizing the emptiness this person is dealing with. So how do they then get the space to even say, I am hurting? Because for you, it is concluded. And then you find the next place, you go and hit your drinks and your party because we were here for Safin. You've moved on with life. They are stuck at the point of their loss. I don't think we are showing up for people very well today. Maybe because we don't know how to show up. Maybe because we are avoiding to deal with our own emotions. Maybe because we feel that that is weakness as well. So this is making people never really come out and say, I'm not okay. Because they wonder why. They feel people will wonder why they have not moved on. Like, you should be done with that, you know, life goes on. The things that people say, you know, everything works for good, there's still life ahead. We need to allow people to stay at the point of loss, because every loss is different. When you're dealing with a family, not everybody will mourn the same way. You'll find one person quickly wants to move out, they want to go out, they want to do stuff to forget the memory. One person wants to stay there and brood on it. None of them is wrong. And so when we show up for people, we need to genuinely show up for them, however long it takes. You don't go and rush somebody who is admitted in hospital to get out of hospital. And this person is emotionally wounded. Probably I need to talk about the next group of people who are the spouses of people who have lost people or their loved ones. You know, if you're dating or relating with somebody who has lost the other person, you have a great test, because at some point you may actually feel that this person doesn't love you because they are grieving over something. And what I see most lovers do is they try to push themselves into the space of this person because they feel they're losing them. So they crowd them. You know, if Cutie is having her moment, she has had a loss, and I'm feeling like she's no longer talking to me, or she's not hanging out with me a lot, I start feeling threatened, and then I start putting her under pressure. Why is it that you're not talking to me? What is it? And not realizing that this person has life also outside of this relationship. A lot of relationships have broken after grief because these other people did not understand that that person was also connected to somebody else. So when you're the spouse of somebody who is grieving, don't try to compete with the person they're grieving. Because nobody wakes up and says, this is how I want to feel about my mom, my dad, my brother, my cousin. It could even be a grandfather. It can even be an uncle. It could be a colleague, but there's a way they have related. It could be a classmate. There's a way they have related, and you cannot suppress them. Let me push it further. even if somebody is grieving their ex, you cannot make them feel guilty for grieving that way. That doesn't mean that they had something going on. I mean, pain is pain. And you cannot pretend that you're not feeling pain. Sometimes people feel the pain just for humanity's sake. I mean, we're feeling the pain of Raila. How many of us are blood related?
Yeah, that's a good one. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but something I wanted us to scratch very fast is how do you get out of that dark season? Because there has to come a day and a time that you have to, get out of it. Getting out of it is not quite the word, because you never really do. But assuming some sense of normalcy for you to really even be functional, because it can get really tough. Let me start with Roberta as we close. How do
Kwanza, Safina, I'd like to say you did a really good job, covering and being able to explain even the different cultural traditions and, throughout Raila's funeral and burial. Nilikuwa na coach kwa TV. That was a really good job.
The whole team.
Yeah, the whole team. Lakini mwendo beshte yangu hapa so. At least nimefanya mcheke kidogo. Mood ilikuwa ina. So, support system, the people around you. I don't think you can never be the same again after you receive the news of a loved one's death or someone that you know. You become a very different person who's now carrying the baggage and, the baggage of grief and pain and loss, and it's very, very difficult. But what I'd say, the things we're saying here, you even mentioned it, the intentionality. As you're moving through life and asking yourself, what will people say about me? Who am I? How am I showing up in this world? Will I be grieved like that? Am I making an impact in this lifetime? While you're moving through life, it is so important that as you carry even your authenticity and you shine as yourself, that you're collecting people around you who are just like you, people who can understand, people who can help you, people who can hold you. Because to be honest, in life, not just like loss or death, in so many other different griefs and losses, it is the people around you who carry you. And I like everything that CJ said, because amejibu maswali hata hiyo ya ex, amejibu kabisa, because sometimes it's so easy for you to be angry at someone who's grieving because you're not receiving the attention and the love that you would be used to. But if you have the right community around you, even if they don't understand you, even if they don't get it, even if they do not empathize, the best they can do is just feel sorry for you, sympathize. All right. As long as they're around you and you're creating a community for yourself that is, steady, I think it'll help you kind of, not eti itasaidia sana, lakini tu kidogo, at least utaweza toka kwa kitanda, kukula breakfast, kuoga, and it'll help. So I'd say, work on yourself and work on the people around you.
It happens, watu wanashindwa kuoga.
Yes,
it's true. Hata kutoka kwa bed na kukula. I'd say this, do what you have to do for you to get through. And there is no wrong way or right way of doing it. Whatever you have to do. I'm a strong believer in kila mtu apitie jani yake venye ataiweza, because there's no manual, there's no menu like utapitie useme, nafaa kufanya hivi, just do what you have to do to get yourself through the storm. Yani, that's the most important thing. Hivyo vile umesema, kuamka, kukula, it's actually a task when you're going through grief. So do what you have to do and let your people be there for you. Let your support system be there for you. And if you're a support system, kama unategemewa, tafadhali refrain yourself from doing those things that CJ amesema, hizo selfie, hizo kufanya nini, like kujudge mse, acha mse apitie. Whether ni your story ya lose a person, ama go through heartbreak or whatever it is, let them be, you just be there for them.
CJ, tumalizie.
Well, in order to get yourself into the place of healing, one, think about what the person who has passed on would be thinking. Look at them as somebody who has dropped off from the race and they're now cheering you on to go ahead with the race. Because if they were to have a conversation with you now, what would they tell you? Would they really want your life to stop because they are no longer here? I don't think that would be the case. So you allowing your life to stop may not do them the justice you think you're doing. So just think about them as having paused from the race and they're cheering you on. That might take time, then now seek help. If you're struggling with getting yourself up, seek help. Find someone to talk to. If you can afford a therapist, if you need friends, if you have to connect with other people who are grieving, even if they're strangers, you find somebody has lost a mom, a husband, a kid or something, even on social media, you'd be amazed at how grieving connects people. And when you begin to talk with them, shared experiences also do produce great healing when you realize you're not the only one who is going through whatever you're going through. Right. So think about the person who's departed and then find help when you're struggling to really get yourself up.
How do you carry their legacy on? How do you move their story forward?
Right.
That is what they would want. Thank you so much. Wow. This was so heavy, but so enlightening. And our thoughts and prayers to the entire country at this very difficult time, and to every person who is mourning and grieving any form of loss at a personal level. Our thoughts and prayers with you, our condolences to your family, your friends, your relatives, and just know that, it is going to be okay, but allow yourself to really go through the whole process of grieving. It is okay to grieve, it is okay to cry, it is okay not to be okay. And that's how we wind it up today. Thank you so much for watching Daybreak this morning. That was Social Hour. My name is Safin Achieng Ouma.